July 16, 1945, Alamogordo, New Mexico, 5:29 a.m. A 100-foot steel tower stands alone in the desert. At its top, a device the size of a trunk, packed with enough energy to end civilization. 10 miles away, Robert Oppenheimer waits in a concrete bunker S-10,000. His deputy whispers the odds. 50% chance it works. 3% chance it ignites the atmosphere and kills every living thing on Earth. This is the moment the world changed, and no one in that bunker knew if they would survive the next 10 seconds. This is not the story you learned in school. Everyone knows the bomb exploded. Almost no one knows how close the entire project came to collapsing, multiple times. Or the one meeting in May 1945 that decided who would actually get hit with it. You'll see the brutal decisions, impossible deadlines, and the quiet moment the scientists realized they had become destroyers of worlds. You'll also discover the real reason the war ended when it did, and it wasn't just Hiroshima. Stay until the end, because the most shocking part of the Manhattan Project didn't happen in the desert. It happened in a smoke-filled room in Washington 3 months earlier. September 1939. German tanks rolled into Poland. Within weeks, 2 refugee physicists, Leo Szilard and Eugene Wigner, drive through Long Island rain to a modest summer house in Peconic. Their target? Albert Einstein. They carry a 2-page letter that will change everything. Einstein signs it. On October 11th, the letter in hand, a presidential aide delivers it to Franklin Roosevelt. The warning is blunt. Recent discoveries make it conceivable, though much less certain, that extremely powerful bombs of a new type may thus be constructed. Germany, the letter stresses, has already stopped the sale of uranium from occupied Czechoslovakia. Roosevelt reads it once, leans back and says simply, "This requires action, but action is slow." The United States is still at peace, Congress is isolationist, and the Army gives the project a few $1,000s and a low-priority file drawer. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, Hitler's scientists, led by Nobel laureate Werner Heisenberg, have already begun their own uranium research inside the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin. By mid-1941, the picture darkens. British intelligence confirms German physicists have built experimental nuclear piles and are stockpiling heavy water from the Norsk hydro plant in occupied Norway. A single commando raid, Operation Gunnerside, barely succeeds in destroying the heavy water facility in February 1943. But the fear remains. Germany is ahead. In America, the project is still scattered. Theoretical work at Columbia, Berkeley, and Chicago. Small teams testing graphite and uranium in university labs. No central direction. Then, in the summer of 1942, everything accelerates. The Army takes over. A brilliant, ruthless cavalry officer named Leslie Richard Groves is appointed commander. Groves hates scientists, but he gets things done. Within weeks, he buys 56,000 acres of remote mesa in northern New Mexico and begins building Los Alamos from nothing. He commandeers the entire American supply of enriched uranium and the entire Congolese uranium output for the next 3 years. He creates 2 entire secret cities, Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Hanford, Washington, each larger than most American cities of the time, yet erased from every map. The scale is staggering. Railroads are rerouted. Entire college campuses are evacuated overnight. Mail is censored. Workers are told only what they need to know to do their single task. Even the Vice President, Harry Truman, is kept in the dark. In late 1944, an OSS report reaches Groves' desk. German scientists in southern Germany have surrendered to ALSO's mission teams. Heisenberg's program never came close. They lacked resources, industrial capacity, and, crucially, Hitler's full support. The race everyone feared for 4 years was already over. The bomb America is racing to finish will never be used against the enemy it was built to stop. Winter 1944. Los Alamos is a pressure cooker. Snow piles against barbed wire fences, While inside the tech area, J. Robert Oppenheimer, thin, chain-smoking, eyes burning, walks the corridors at 3 a.m., checking calculations. Two separate bomb designs are racing forward simultaneously because no one knows which will work. The simpler design, Little Boy, is a gun-type uranium bomb. It is so certain to detonate that it will never be tested. Its fuel, 60 kilograms of highly enriched uranium-235, is being separated atom by atom in the gigantic, humming electromagnetic calutrons at Oak Ridge. Women operators, known only as calutron girls, sit for 12-hour shifts watching meters, adjusting knobs by fractions of a degree, unaware they are enriching the most dangerous substance on Earth. The riskier design, Fat Man, is an implosion plutonium bomb, is far more complex. At Hanford, 4 massive reactors along the Columbia River produce plutonium by the gram. Every batch is rushed by armed courier to New Mexico. But plutonium from the reactors spontaneously fissions. A gun-type assembly would pre-detonate and fizzle. The only solution? Compress a subcritical plutonium core with a perfectly symmetrical shockwave of conventional explosives, something never attempted. By March 1945, the implosion team is running 24-hour shifts. Explosive lenses are cast, machined, and X-rayed. One lens out of tolerance by 1/1000th of an inch could turn the bomb into the world's most expensive dud. Oppenheimer's weight drops below 115 pounds. He tells colleagues privately, "If this fails, we have nothing." July 16, 1945, 200 hours, Alamogordo Bombing Range, New Mexico. Storm clouds boil overhead. The gadget, 5 tons of steel, wire, and high explosive wrapped around a plutonium core no larger than an orange, sways at the top of a 100-foot steel tower. Enrico Fermi takes side bets on whether the blast will ignite the atmosphere and end all life on Earth. No one laughs for long. At 5:29:45 a.m., the firing circuit closes. For one frozen instant, there is absolute silence. Then a light brighter than 1,000 suns floods the desert. The shockwave flattens observers 10 miles away. A blind girl 150 miles distant sees the flash. The steel tower vaporizes. A crater 1,200 feet wide, lined with green glass, trinitite, marks ground zero. Oppenheimer watches from the control bunker. His brother Frank, standing beside him, hears him whisper the line from the Bhagavad Gita. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The yield? 21 kilotons, 4 times higher than predicted. The implosion design works perfectly. The weapon is ready. In Washington, a 1-sentence coded message is teletyped to Secretary of War Henry Stimson at the Potsdam Conference reads simply, "Doctor has just returned most enthusiastic and confident that the little boy is as husky as his big brother. The light in his eyes discernible from here to Highhold." Translation: the test succeeded beyond all hopes. August 9th, 1945, 6 o'clock, Tinian Island, North Field. The B-29 Enola Gay lifts off into darkness. In its bomb bay hangs Little Boy. At 08:15 local time, the bomb falls free above Hiroshima. 43 seconds later, 60 kilograms of uranium reach criticality, 600 meters over Shima Hospital. In 1/10,000,000th of a second, a fireball hotter than the surface of the sun consumes the city center. 70,000 people die instantly. Another 70,000 are wounded, many fatally. Survivors describe a silent flash, then a wind like a hurricane made of fire. 3 days later, Boxcar drops Fat Man on Nagasaki. 40,000 dead in the first moments. The intended target, Kokura, is spared only because of cloud cover. On the ground, Japanese military authorities send frantic reports. No known defense. Entire cities erased in single blows. Morale collapsing. August 10th. Imperial Palace, Tokyo. Emperor Hirohito convenes the Supreme War Council. For the first time in recorded history, the emperor speaks directly. He says the war has developed not necessarily to Japan's advantage. The military hardliners, men who swore to fight to the last man, sit in stunned silence. They now understand the next bomb is already on Tinian, and another will be ready every 10 days. And then everything changed. On August 15th, Hirohito's voice, heard by the public for the first time ever, broadcasts the surrender. Across the Pacific, sailors on American ships weep openly in the sunlight. The atomic bomb did not just end World War II. It ended the era in which any nation could believe total war was survivable. August 15, 1945. Church bells ring in New York. Strangers embrace in Times Square. The war is over. Yet the Manhattan Project cost $2 billion, almost $35 billion today, employed 1 in every 500 Americans, and consumed more electricity than the entire U.S. automobile industry. And yet, on the day Japan surrendered, almost none of those 130,000 workers knew what they had built. When newspapers finally printed the words "atomic bomb," many in Oak Ridge and Hanford wept in the streets, some from pride, others from horror, most from both. Strategically, the war ended exactly as President Truman intended, without an invasion of the Japanese home islands. Operation Downfall, the planned November 1945 assault on Kyushu, followed by the final push on Tokyo in 1946, had been projected to cost up to 1 million American casualties and millions more Japanese lives. 2 bombs and 1 imperial broadcast canceled it forever. The Soviet Union took furious note. Stalin's spies, Klaus Fuchs, Theodore Hall, and David Greenglass among them, had already delivered the complete blueprints of Fat Man. 4 years later, almost to the day, the USSR detonated its own atomic device. The nuclear arms race that would define the next half-century began before the rubble in Hiroshima had cooled. Germany's failure became the overlooked tragedy. Heisenberg's team never built a reactor that sustained a chain reaction. They miscalculated the critical mass by orders of magnitude and believed a bomb would need tons of uranium, not kilograms. The weapon built to stop Hitler was never needed for its original purpose, and the long shadow stretched forward. By 1950s, schoolchildren learned to duck and cover. Cities drew evacuation routes that could never work. The balance of terror became the uneasy foundation of world peace. If you love real World War II stories that sound unbelievable but actually happened, subscribe for more. The war ended in fire, but the story of the bomb was only beginning. Everyone remembers Trinity. Everyone remembers Hiroshima. Almost no one remembers the meeting that made those moments inevitable. May 31, 1945. Interim Committee. Top Secret Conference Room, Pentagon. A handful of men, Secretary of War Stimson, future Secretary of State James Burns, 3 distinguished scientists led by Oppenheimer, and 2 Army generals sat around a table and debated whether the bomb should ever be used at all. Some argued for a technical demonstration on an uninhabited island. Others for a warning shot in Tokyo Bay. Oppenheimer himself remained silent for much of the discussion. In the end, the committee recommended direct military use against a city, without specific warning, to achieve maximum psychological effect. Stimson later wrote that he removed Kyoto from the target list because of its cultural importance, but he never challenged the core decision. 6 weeks later, the bombs fell. The overlooked factor was this: once the weapon existed, once the money was spent and the machine was built, the momentum toward using it became almost unstoppable. Not because anyone wanted to kill civilians, but because no one in power could imagine spending $2 billion and 3 years of total secrecy and then choosing not to use it. That is the quiet, terrible irony history forgot. The bomb ended the war, yes, but it was also used, above all, because it had been built. The mushroom clouds rose, the war ended, and humanity stepped across a line it can never uncross. Every empire that followed would be forced to live in the shadow of what a few scientists and generals decided in secret rooms between 1942 and 1945. The age of total war died in fire over Japan, but total peace never arrived. Because 6 days after Hiroshima, in a quiet room thousands of miles away, one man wrote a single sentence in his diary that proves the atomic bomb almost never ended the war at all. The clock Guadalcanal bought in blood reached zero in the desert that July morning, and the world has been living on borrowed time ever since. Next time on Wars and Myths, we go back to the beginning of that borrowed time. 6 months of hell on a forgotten island called Guadalcanal, where half-starved Marines with 1903 rifles bought the 18 months that made Hiroshima possible. Guadalcanal, the turning point few Americans hear about. See you there.